guys? Josh here, and we also have
Bryn.
CV.
And today we're going to talk about medical waste disposal. Just kidding. We're actually going to talk about a highly debated and heated topic here in Idaho for sure. I know it is in Texas as well. Pretty much anywhere west of California or north of California, it is a highly
Or northeast
controversial.
of California.
Northeast. There you go. Yeah. We're going to talk about transplants. Now we live in the great state of Idaho. And I mean, it's a phenomenal place, and we have had a surge of Californians moving in, and people from elsewhere as well, but mainly Californians moving to Idaho recently. And of course, with that comes positives and negatives, and we're going to talk about that, get everybody's different opinion on it. Now, full disclosure, none of us are natives.
All of us are transplants.
All of us are transplants. So.
Some more hated than others.
Yes, some from California, some not, and thank God for that, right? So, and some of us moved here before it was popular to hate Californians.
This is true.
Anyways, let's go ahead and get into it. So, Bryn.
Josh.
Transplants in Idaho. Highly controversial subject. We see it projected through different emotions on social media if you belong to any sort of town page or anything like that where people are either complaining. I think they're complaining on both sides. Like, I'm from California, don't hate me. And then others saying, you're from California, I hate you. What's your thoughts on transplants moving to Idaho?
So, as a transplant, I think that if you're unhappy wherever you are, you should move to a place where you believe will make you happy.
Mm-hmm.
I am not against transplants to a T, or to an extent. What I will say, what we're seeing in Idaho with transplants, in specific from California, we're seeing one state and one demographic of people moving to another state and integrating with another demographic of people that are, for the most part, polar opposites. Mm-hmm. You and I both have friends from California that fit right in. Mm-hmm. Like, I moved to Idaho almost 7 years ago from the horrible state of Kentucky. I moved over here because of what Idaho was. I liked Idaho the way it was, and that's why I moved here.
Now, for those who don't know what Idaho was, or your perception of it, what is that?
It was a very less populated area than what I was used to coming from back east. And when I know when a lot of people think about Kentucky, they don't think, well, that's a huge population center. But like, the biggest city in Idaho is smaller than a moderate city in Kentucky or that tri-state area. Mm-hmm. The population density east of the Mississippi River is just astronomical compared to out west. There's nowhere even near the same amount. Half the state of Kentucky is more populated than all the state of Idaho. Mm-hmm. So I'm not a fan of people in general. So coming to a place that had fewer people was obviously attractive. I politically lean more libertarian and conservative, which Idaho aligned with. I'm a huge fan of firearms and recreational activity, hunting, defense, in every aspect. And Idaho's extremely, I believe it was the third most gun-friendly state in the United States, which would make us pretty high up there on the world map, you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. So it was just a really friendly city or state to my ideas and the way I wanted to live. That being said, in the last almost 7 years, it's changed drastically. There's last year from Amherst Madsen, which is a huge real estate firm here in the Treasure Valley where we live, they said that over 110,000 people moved here to the Treasure Valley, not to Idaho, but just to the Treasure Valley last year. Yeah. To put that in perspective, the small town that I lived in Kentucky, that's 4 times that amount of people. There's, you know, I mean, that's more than 4 times. It's almost 5 times the amount of people that I was used to. So that coming down, like, right where I live, kind of took that small population kind of out of it. Now, traffic is just dumb here. But with those people, with the majority of those people coming here from California, a lot of their ideology came with them. So you see a lot of small local governments and ordinances and things getting changed that took away from that Wild West free kind of mentality that was here in Idaho. Now, those are the negatives. The positives, and where most of my opinion comes from people that are coming in from out of state, they're bringing a lot of industry here. And that's an aspect that a lot of people don't look at. The people that are buying the houses, the people that are buying the products, the people that are keeping small businesses around here alive, a lot of those people are the people from California and Texas and all those other states that are coming here with money. So that's a big thing that we need to think about. Like, if we want to prosper and we want to be able to make money, we have to have people that have that money coming to buy those things.
So one question as far as that goes. Yes, it's great,
Yes.
right? I'm going to play devil's advocate. Yes, it's great that this extra, money is coming into the state and being, flowed through these local businesses.
Mm-hmm.
But one could make the argument that prior to them coming, they didn't have higher expenses. So it's not necessarily that they're getting better off because of this additional growth. Their cost of rent may have gone up. Different costs of,
Oh, yeah. But see,
having to hire more people to man, their business.
So the overheads of businesses are going to change regardless if people move in or not. Cost of living and inflation is constantly a thing. But like for instance, the price of a gallon of milk didn't go up because 110,000 people moved here last year.
Mm-hmm.
The price of a gallon of milk went up because the dollar lost more value.
Right.
And that's going to happen regardless of those people coming in. So if you're a small business owner in this area, you still have to buy that gallon of milk for your family. So if it's the cost of it's going to go up, well, I don't know about you, but I would want to have more business coming in so I can make more money.
So playing devil's advocate on another part of the subject that you mentioned earlier, right? You moved to Idaho because of your beliefs and values, right?
Absolutely.
Again, playing devil's advocate, you saw it for its Second Amendment sanctuary, if you will. That was a big draw for you. Let's say a Democrat and a socialist Democrat in Southern California grew up on a farm, and to them, their idea is, hey, you know what? Idaho reminds me of the farming community I grew up on. They're looking at really that one aspect as well, or maybe multiple aspects like you were, I'm sure, and making those determinations. So who's to say that them moving here is changing the state in a negative way versus you? Because you may be carrying more conservative or libertarian principles that don't align necessarily with the locals here.
Right. So, well, what I'll say about that is that I don't love everything about Idaho. There are things about Idaho that I didn't like, and I had to weigh those options between the things that I liked and the things that I didn't.
Mm-hmm.
And when I chose Idaho as a place to stay, I had to live with those things that I didn't like.
Gotcha.
So, and I think we just had a Democrat run for governor with a very appealing gimmick to a lot of people. She's going to be the first female governor, the first female Native American governor, and she ran on the platform that if she becomes governor, guess what's not allowed in Idaho anymore? AR-15s. So enough people were here that said absolutely not, and they didn't vote her into office. And I think that that's a true testament to the overall spirit of Idaho and what Idaho is. And I don't think that there's enough people yet to change that. So the values that I liked about Idaho are still here. And I think that's a big over dramatization that people go through, is that they go, oh, these Californians are moving up here, they're going to change everything. And they haven't changed everything. They have changed some things. But if you're searching for a place that you're going to love every aspect of, you're setting yourself up for failure. You're going to have to let go of some of the ideals that you hold when you come to a new place. And I think that's also where a lot of Californians are coming up here not realizing that, not just Californians, but people from Oregon, people from Washington, those are heavily Democrat states, and they're moving to a more Republican or right-leaning state, thinking that they're going to change the way things are there. And that's where you get into trouble. And that's where a lot of people get hung up on. I don't think it's ever going to happen in the state. I just don't.
You don't think the state is going to do what?
I don't think that right-leaning aspect is ever going to change from Idaho. I just don't.
So we actually used to be a very Democrat.
I'm
I'd
aware.
say.
Yeah, I'm aware. I just don't think it'll ever happen, at least in my lifetime here. I think that this is a pretty good stronghold for right-leaning ideals, conservative ideals.
So where I would disagree with you is that you can kind of look at where people, and this isn't always the case, but if you look at voting districts, we know where the Democrats have strongholds, and we know where the Republicans have strongholds. And if you look at it currently, with more people moving in, right, that's going to impact, of course, legislative races, Senate races, different things like that, and local races that are important. But when you look at the total number, like, we know that North Idaho is staunch, like, for the most part. Of course, there's a lot of people who don't share conservative ideology in North Idaho, but predominantly, we can
Mainly
blanket
in the
say,
Moscow area.
yeah, we can blanket say that is conservative. Just like we could say overall, Boise is very Democrat, right?
So, yeah.
If you look at the populations, right, and how it's changing, I think that we are going to see a slow and steady change. And they actually did this. Not saying that this is an organized saying, but I wouldn't be surprised. But they turned Colorado, which was a very conservative state, to slowly purple, now to blue.
Yeah.
So I think that there is strategic movement that happens, and I don't necessarily believe that it's like, hey, tell everybody you know to move to Colorado. Right? I think those sort of things don't even necessarily happen from outside influence. I think it's more so a lot of times in the teaching industry, people who become professors at colleges, they get through their bachelor's degree, then they get their master's degree, then they start teaching. So it's one talking head to the next, sharing their political ideology. And when you're hanging out with, maybe this isn't fair to say, but I'm going to say it anyways. When you're hanging out with a bunch of kids, right, you're going to have a lot of times the same worldview, right? They're going to kind of morph. And I don't know what your political views are, and you're libertarian. It sounds like libertarian conservative. Personally, I ride I would have to say I'm a staunch conservative. I am a Republican. But I'm a Republican in Idaho because of the Republican platform in Idaho.
Right.
And yeah, we can get into why I'm not a libertarian later. But I think that it's a lot of times, that direct influence on the youth, right? And we could move 100 conservatives here every week, but is that going to replace the people who are being potentially indoctrinated, whether a kid goes to a conservative college and is being indoctrinated with conservative leaning ideology, or a very liberal college where they're being fed this information from these professors that they look up to. A lot of times what happens with people is until they start paying taxes as an adult, you tend to be giving and very forthcoming with other people's money.
Well, there's an age-old saying: if you're not a liberal when you're young, you don't have a heart. And if you're not a conservative when you're older, you don't have a brain.
Yeah, I never had a heart.
I did at one point in time. Actually, believe it or not, I voted for Barack Obama in his first election. And a lot of that was my hate for Mitt Romney. But anyways,
I can understand.
That's another story for another day. But like, I don't know, man. Like, I just feel like I feel like there's no way to stop those kind of things, because those professors and you know what I mean. Like, not everyone coming from California is a raging liberal.
I think most of them are actually conservative.
I believe they are. Yeah, absolutely. I'm going to say that I know just as many conservative Californians that have moved here than I do liberals.
But I think it's also fair to say at the same time, a lot of times when you ask somebody from California, they're saying, hey, I'm conservative. I left that state because of their desire to raise taxes on us and the cost of living. But most people that you survey who are not politically involved and don't actually know what the party platform states in their state and on the federal level, a lot of times if you ask them, they're going to be more so the cool people who were 90s Democrats. I mean, I hate to say it, they were kind of the cool people back then, because it was like, I'm a Democrat because I believe in this and this, but I actually side with, conservatives on this, and this. But I actually side with, conservatives on this, and this. And a lot of times what happens with people is until they start paying taxes as an adult, you tend to be And nowadays it seems like there is a
Oh, yeah.
straight line drawn.
You're either this way or you're this way.
And if you tend to go over on either side, whichever side of the aisle you're on is going to just eat you up, right? Republicans call them rhinos. Democrats, I don't know what they call them.
friends.
They don't call people friends who lean certain ways on certain
Right,
things
no.
if they don't go with the topic of the day. So
How do you feel about it, Stevie?
Yeah?
Transplants. What do you feel?
Man, it's almost like I'm a transplant from California.
Oh man, almost.
Crazy. All this shit talking for a minute. So I definitely lean more conservative, not gonna lie. I definitely have more conservative values. I lean, what was that little joke I told you? I just want people to be able to guard their weed plants, gay couples to guard their weed plants with guns.
Yes.
That's kind of my values and what I,
She doesn't know she's a libertarian yet.
oh yeah?
Yeah.
And why is that?
Because you believe that married gay couples should be able to guard their weed plants with AR-15s.
See, I don't think that that's necessarily a libertarian view. It was at one time.
Yeah.
Because, the Pat Robinson of the 80s who, ran for president said, well, we're going to bring God back and we're going to make God number one. Right? But a lot of people, like, even I have one business that I own and one of my business partners is a homosexual Republican, and he's the first homosexual Republican to run for office in Idaho, right? Very staunch conservative guy. He happens to have a different sexual orientation than me. And outside of the religious aspect, and I'm going to just say blanket religious because, you have...
Is there a religion out there that's completely supportive of gay people? I don't think there is.
Yes.
There is.
Yes.
Which is?
Not your typical religion, not like Christianity,
She's talking about her paganism.
Exactly.
Yeah.
We're getting into some weird shit here, but there is, if you want to get technical.
Yeah, I mean, and even in different, portions of religion, you're always going to have just same thing like with politics. There's politics in religion. You're going to have it to where whether you follow Islam or Christianity or Judaism, no matter what it is, you're going to have your staunch conservatives, and you're going to have your more liberal, free love type, right?
Yeah.
So,
Goddamn hippies.
So yeah, you're gonna have your diehards, and then you're gonna have your
Exactly.
lenient. Exactly. That's just how it is, I think, with everything. But in the regard, I think, as somebody who came here, not necessarily because I wanted to, I liked California, just the cost of living was too significant for me to survive on my own at the time when I moved here. So I took the opportunity of betterment to be able to go to school, work a part-time job, and benefit and move forward. I love California, the aspect, I love the culture, I love the people, the food, everything like that. Then when I moved here, I realized it wasn't as different, and I love how we're booming. I mean, I know it sucks with the traffic and everything, but as someone who grew up in that, I really could give two shits.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So I guess that's my perspective on it. I can definitely see where, I lean more conservative, but I came from the melting pot of the world.
Mm-hmm.
I just think that there's give and take in every community, and I think there's a lot more benefit with people coming in from different areas than there are negative aspects of it.
Right.
So to me, it's always kind of funny when people are like, fuck this traffic, or, fuck the ideals. I'm like, I don't necessarily think that has anything to do with a person being specifically from California
Right.
or, Texas. I just think everybody comes together and that builds a bigger community, and that's why I love Idaho, because I feel like I'm not necessarily missing as much as I would had I moved somewhere else.
Right.
So I don't hate the state that I live in because I don't feel like I'm missing California when I'm here, and that's why I've stayed here for so long.
It's an interesting perspective.
yeah. Funny enough, actually, if you want to talk about what I would say, I like the guy a lot, but the most hated man in Idaho politics, who's not a politician, and he's up north. He's actually from California, and he's called the godfather of North Idaho politics. Like, he really brought a fire to it. Like,
It's a long title.
Yeah, it's very long. Godfather of politics in North Idaho. But that's what the newspapers were calling him,
Yeah.
even though they hate him. But he's a conservative from from California, and he's, I'm sure he's put his money where his mouth is. I haven't looked at the SOS and looked at different things but a lot of people who talk the loudest anyways and complain aren't necessarily politically involved that I've seen.
Well, I think a lot of the hate for Californians comes from ignorance, because if you look at a political map of California, county by county, there's a lot more red than there is blue. The problem is those blue areas are extremely populated.
Very dense, yeah.
So most of the state is fairly conservative. But
So let me ask you something, because I think this is perspective. Isn't it cool to hate things? Like, isn't it cool to jump on a bandwagon,
yeah,
like a bandwagon?
I think a
and be
lot
like,
of people do.
yeah, like fuck Californians, And it's funny because everybody jokes about it, but I think everybody just wants to be a part of something, and not necessarily if they agree. Like, I think everybody just wants to be on the popular side of things, to feel like they belong.
Did you ever see that Banana Inc., a local company here in Idaho? You know who I'm talking about?
No.
You don't.
They make the hats and the shirts with the state of Idaho shooting a tree.
Yes, sorry.
So they have another hoodie and shirt and hat, and it's an old school 1980s game. And it's where you have the plane and you're shooting the planes coming at you.
Yeah.
And it's called Invaders, and instead of spaceships coming at you, it's different states. So it's like small California,
Oh, that's funny.
Nevada, Oregon, everything, and it's just shooting at them. So I think that you're absolutely right. There's something to be said. There's a market for
anti-implant
frustration, I think, in general. And sometimes I think a lot of times people have misplaced frustration.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Right? I've never gotten it. I've always been treated with respect, but I don't, I've been here since 2011. I moved here, and I actually only moved to Idaho for a custody battle, right? Not even necessarily a battle, but I was getting full custody of my daughter, and I needed to just move to Idaho to make the transition smooth. And I didn't plan on staying in Idaho, but I fell in love with Idaho. I fell in love with the people. And, I grew up a military brat. My dad just retired from Special Forces this year, back in May. So I lived all over the United States. So it's not even like I could say, when somebody's like, well, where are you from? It's like,
Everywhere.
I was born in Texas.
Right. Yeah.
But I've lived in California, Oregon, Washington, Idaho, prior to this, Colorado, North Carolina, Texas, I've lived in a lot of places,
Right.
so it's not easy for me to say where I'm specifically from. I can tell you where I most recently moved from, but that's a state I've always hated. So, I don't know.
Oregon?
Yeah.
You hate Oregon?
I absolutely hate Oregon with a passion.
I hate it now. I do. Originally, when we came over here, I was supposed to actually live in Oregon. I bought property in Oregon. We were supposed to build a house on it, et cetera, et cetera. And then when I kind of seen what Oregon was as an adult, because that's where I was born, but I was raised in Kentucky, I was like, no, I don't want to live there. And I kind of fell in love with Idaho. So it's kind of the same story. Like, I never planned on staying in Idaho. I was just like, wow, this place is pretty cool.
Yeah.
Low cost of living, low population density, cool people, all the things I love to do.
Yeah. See, I was planning on moving down south. I was planning on moving to Alabama.
Gross.
I like south. But, it was either going to end in Texas or Alabama or Louisiana. Somewhere was kind of my idea. And the reason I hate Oregon is not because necessarily of the politics. Now that I'm older and I care more, yes, of course that has something to do with it, but not while I lived there. While I lived there, it was just kind of your experience, your lived experience. So you enjoyed the part of California you were in. I lived in Lane County, Oregon, which is the #1 county for methamphetamine.
Yep.
So
Hell yeah,
I would
brother.
know.
essentially everybody I grew up with that I cared about became people I don't want to associate myself with. So even when I go through Oregon, if I'm seeing family or whatever, I refuse to stay in that town. I try not to stop or anything. I'll go, if I have to go to that town, like when my mom was living there, I go directly to her house. I make sure I gassed up in Eugene or something. I'd stop, I'd visit with her, and then I'd bounce. Because I did not want to see anybody, because it was one of those things like when you write people off and you're just like, I'm done with all these people, and there's nothing here worth visiting or seeing. When you do that and then you have to see somebody and they're like, what's up, man? Yeah,
Right,
I see you
they're
at the
like-
gas station, they're scratching
Yeah.
their neck, and yeah, it's just like, even if they got better, which I hope that everybody's doing successful there, but I still have no time for that. Like,
Yeah.
it's,
Yeah.
you know, if you want to talk, we'll talk on social media. That's about all I can give, or I'm willing to. So maybe that's a jerk thing, but
No,
that's why
no,
I
no.
stop. I just, the whole state, and it just disgusts me. I don't know. Even camping, like, until you get into eastern Oregon, you go camping, you're gonna wake up wet.
Yeah.
Like, there's just so much moisture that it'll come through your tent, and you're gonna wake up wet.
Well, it's so weird because 2 years ago I went to Portland, and that's something I always wanted to do. And I went, and I was like, this place is a fucking shithole. And I was like so disappointed because everybody's like, oh, this, and this, and we did it, and it was just a shithole from the experience, from the people, and everything like that. And I sat there, and for a long time I was like, man, fuck Idaho. And then I came back, and I was like, I actually really fucking like this place.
Yeah.
It's so clean. It's so, and these are the aspects coming from somebody who was from San Francisco. It's not the same as it used to be. It
Yeah.
really isn't.
No.
So living here, you realize how clean it is here. How
Yeah.
friendly everybody is here. And you can't really say that about a lot of other places. I can tell you every time I leave, I'm super excited to come back here.
You know what's funny about that? My mom actually lives in Portland now. She owns a house there. And I try and go and visit her once a year. And I hate Portland with a passion. And it's because of my experience. I'm sure people have had great experiences there. But when I've gone down there, you'll be walking through downtown Portland, and you see people pissing with their dicks out.
Yeah.
Pardon my language. Or you have people literally shooting up heroin.
Sad.
Not even trying to hide it. They just crouch down right by the road. They're shooting it up. I had one guy, as I'm walking by, he's smoking heroin and fucking blows it out, like, unintentionally. He was blowing it towards the wall, but it came right back at me. I was like, this is just, like, there was just nothing redeemable
No, there's
for
no.
me with that place.
No,
Not at all.
100%. And to step over syringes and stuff like that is
Yeah.
ridiculous, And then they want to talk about making these safe spaces for people to shoot up in these areas. I'm like, fuck you. You don't know. Here you are, you say you take pride in your culture and what you are, but, your city's disgusting and you're, amplifying this drug abuse and people shitting and pissing on the street. It's.
There's actually an app for California that will show you everywhere where there's shit on the street.
Yeah, it's not surprising.
Human feces.
Right?
It's
It's sad.
Well, here's the thing that I'll say as far as kind of going into that. A lot of the people who are doing that, yes, there's a lot of drug addicts, but there's a lot of crazy people.
Mm-hmm.
And most crazy people end up homeless on the streets. They stop taking their meds, and then they take drugs, which, will
Self-medicate.
create an even bigger problem. And California's response to that, of course, is they pay a bunch of people to go around and say, are you okay? You okay? I watched a documentary on this. I'm like, whoa. These people are like, we have no resources to do anything, so this is what we do. I'm like, well, why the fuck are they paying you to go around and say, you okay? And then one of the people was like, don't you fucking talk to me, blah, 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 and then start talking to, the ground. And then, just very, aggressive. And I'm just like, that's probably, it's a small amount, but those people's job, there was, I think, 4 of them, living in California, working for the state, they probably make at least $100,000, $80,000 to $100,000 a year minimum, right? To go around and say, are you okay? But they can't do anything. So, while I don't necessarily think that they should be fired, I do think that their jobs should be eliminated.
Yeah, what is your purpose? What are you giving back to society?
Could that $400,000 to $500,000 be put into
something
the mental health
Exactly.
institutions that could actually help these people?
Well, it's funny. No matter where you stand on the president, he was actually, I was reading something he was quoted saying, he was talking about mental health recently, and he said, where's the mental health clinics?
Yeah.
Where are they? You don't see them.
Nope.
And that was all I read of it. That was, so he may have also said, I that's because I burned them down, bitch.
Right.
Just to be fair, he could have
Sucker.
said, I blew them all up. I'm
Right.
the Joker.
So everybody's an advocate online, everybody shares these mental health posts and, everybody's like, oh, hit me up if you have these feelings, if you're suicidal, lonely, etc. But then you look and nobody's actually there for their friends in that regard, ever. I've never truly, I think, ever had a friend that's been like, hey, you're struggling, or if you see somebody posting stuff, but they're all for it when celebrities pass away, with these like, oh, that's so sad, but nobody truly wants to support their friends going through this.
It's a conversation that only pops up when someone famous does it.
Exactly.
Yeah, or after the fact.
After the fact, yeah. And everybody wants to act like once somebody has passed away, like, oh, I would have done anything and everything. And the signs are there, the visible signs, and nobody wants to step and be like, oh, well, I'm so sorry I didn't recognize you going through this. Like, no, you did. You just didn't speak up.
Right.
Well, and I also think it's fair to say that those people who are big advocates, you'll notice that they're big advocates with other people's money, never their own. Like, these celebrities are like, hey, this is the hot issue this week. They want to do something about it, but they want to do something about it with yours and my tax dollars.
Yep.
Yeah, and that's just to segue back to the original topic though. Like, that's one thing that I've noticed in Idaho more so than in past years is that since we're getting all these people into Idaho from other states, there's a lot of more social programs that are getting started and that are starting to take foot that personally I don't think are. I mean, my libertarian stance is that I don't care for social programs. I don't care for my tax dollars being used for anything other than what they're supposed to be used for, and that's a lot of nothing.
Define the social programs.
Social programs, anything from welfare to the education systems to I mean, unless it's to literally take care of the roads or the defense of the country or in our situation, the state. I think that the money you're taking from the citizens, like say this family, the 32%, whatever our tax rate is right now, that percentage of their income, if they still had that, there would be a much better safety net to be able to take care of their own in those regards. I don't think social programs really do us as much benefit as a lot of people think, and Idaho has in the past had fewer than most states. They're starting to gain and gain and gain, and that's why the taxes in Idaho are becoming higher and higher and higher.
Well, all right. So to be fair, I have to say we don't have any data to support that claim.
That's true.
So we don't have any data to support that. Where we can physically see this, and we have seen reports in the news, is talking about the strain on schools, right?
Yes.
Because we're at a point where we're overpopulated. We saw a forecast, we did nothing about it as a state, and now instead of being proactive like we should have, which of course naturally we tense up when there's talks of bonds or levies. I do, even to today. We tense up about that, so instead we're being reactive, and it has cost us because the cost of building has gone up, the cost of land has gone up substantially. So if we would have been proactive, and that's kind of I don't want to say it's a shame on me or anybody else, but if we would have been thinking forward thinking, it could have saved us some money. But I digress. But outside of the social programs, everything like that, well, even touching on the social programs. So like, I'm sure somebody's gonna spit in the comments that Idaho is one of the biggest welfare states out of them all, which is true.
There's a lot.
But it's not because of food stamps, different things like that. It's because we are an agricultural community, and these farmers do get supplemented as far as they get told, grow corn and then destroy it, sort of thing, or we'll take it and we'll use it in everything. Every single item of food we're going to just throw corn in. So there's that, and that does heavily make us to where we are a welfare state comparatively to Democrat states, but it's not actually a fair representation. At the same time, I did live here during, I believe it was maybe 2008. It was during kind of the financial crisis. A lot of people were being laid off. And you'd see a lot of people were on unemployment. And they weren't on just unemployment. They were on unemployment for extended periods of time. And some of the people I kind of talked to about it, because I was self-employed.
But you can see that nationwide, not just
Yes,
Yeah.
So I'm just saying, like, it's not that it's a new thing. We have trends and different things that could be contributing to it. But while I agree, like someone like you and I, right? And I don't know your financial situation. That's why I'm not including you. But someone like you and I, we can pre-plan. If we had the opportunity to save that money, we would be strategic and smart about it. I think I'm sure both of us have some sort of nest egg that we can fall back on, whether it's monetary or physical goods
Right.
that you can get money from easily. So while that works for somebody like us, there's a lot of people who either don't have the same ambitions that we do, which is on them. But there's also, I hate to say it, but I've met people that don't have any mental or physical disabilities, but they are just not
Driven.
No, they're driven, but their wheels spin in the mud because they just can't comprehend things right away. Like, I met a guy who was in the military, right? When I was 16 years old, I worked at a McDonald's in Colorado Springs. And this guy was in the military, he was single, so he'd come and he'd flip burgers at night. And if you talked about anything, and I'm not talking like, I wasn't like a cool kid who knew all the hip hop songs or anything like that. So it's not like I was like, yo, did you check out this
Little
Charlamander
trendsetter.
CD or Lil Wayne CD? And he'd be like, what? And it wasn't anything like that. It'd be like, simple stuff like, hey man, are you gonna, do this? And I'm like, what? Like, I don't understand what you're talking about. And it was one of those things that's like, okay, I'm sure he's an extremely intelligent guy. Like, I'm sure he dominates in whatever field that he's in. But outside of that,
So his ability to process things wasn't there necessarily. Is that what you're saying?
Well, I would say that it took him a little bit longer to process things, but he didn't necessarily have anything wrong with him. I mean, he was able
So maybe just his social skills weren't necessarily there?
No, it wasn't social.
Really?
He was a social enough
It's
guy.
comprehension issue.
Yeah, he had,
Yeah.
he had issues where it took him a minute to comprehend things that maybe weren't as familiar to him.
That makes sense.
So, somebody like that, it's hard for them. Like, when he gets out of the military, unless he's, like, secretly a book nerd killing it in one subject, I think he's going to find himself that if he gets out, he's going to be, at a place like
Lost.
McDonald's, flipping burgers for minimum wage.
Right.
And even there, like, thinking about him in retrospect, he wasn't, like, a promotable guy.
Right.
So there's those people who maybe don't have the life skills or the forethought needed to be able to plan and prepare for that. So works for people like you and I, and on a very conservative individual, basis. I think it should be that way, where we take care of ourselves, right? I also don't think we should pay taxes on income earned. I think it should be on
Right.
goods.
I agree.
But I think that a lot of steps would have to take place for it to be where we did not rely on those things for individuals such as the example I gave.
Well,
Not even touching on people with mental or physical disabilities.
I think, and I've said this to CD in numerous conversations that we've had, is the only kind of mentality or ideology that I can relate to are situations and things that I have experienced. And
Sure.
in my experience, I grew up super poor in Kentucky, and then when I became an adult and got on my own, and got out of college, I was faced with a what do you do now situation, which a lot of people are faced with. Like,
Right.
I want to say the vast majority of people in this country are faced with. But instead of going into panic mode, I said, okay, well, what can I do regardless if it pertains to my degree or not? And that led me to a job. And then that job paid well, and I did that job fairly well, and I progressed through that job until that job dead ended. And then I took that experience, and I took that knowledge, and I went to another job, and I progressed through that job. And that pattern continued until I was moderately successful in my professional career. And what I'm getting at is that I don't think that I'm special in any way, shape, or form.
Right.
I'm a pretty average cookie. And the reason why that's important is because in my experience, the way I perceive this, and it's the only way I can, because those are my experiences, is that There's no reason that nobody else can do it, especially these people that were raised in very middle class, upper middle class families, and even into the wealthy class, that are sitting here going, well, I need help, I need help, I need help. Like, no, you don't need help from anybody but yourself. And I think every human being possesses some sort of ambition or some sort of talent or some sort of something they can capitalize on. It's just a matter of willing to take the easy road and say, well, I need help, or take the hard road and say, I'm going to do this on my own.
Any woman can open a daycare and make good money.
Absolutely.
And I'm not saying that to be sexist, I'm just saying I wouldn't take my kids to, a guy.
No, well, and aside from that, like even people with mental ailments, like there's special needs people out there that are far better well off than I am.
Mm.
There's children that are making millions of dollars on their own or their parents' ideas. You know what I mean? Like, people are setting their families and their children, et cetera, up because of the lessons they're teaching them. And you know what I mean? Like, they're teaching those people to do this because you're good at it and you can be successful at it. And I think that's an aspect that's missing in our culture, in my generation and younger. It's much easier for people to say, well, I need help, instead of, well, I need, and we see a lot of that coming. And I think Idaho was based off of that, lace up your boots and get to work mentality back in the day. And we're seeing that change drastically with the more and more influx of people from different cultures in different states, that it's more acceptable for people to be like, well, I need help. And in Idaho, that aspect hasn't been there for so long. People are going, what the hell is this?
Well, I think it has, though. And the reason I'm saying that is because we have a huge refugee resettlement program here in Idaho.
Which is fairly recent. It's fairly new.
I mean, it's not, though, compared to the Californians moving in droves.
Oh, yeah, no, yeah.
We've been dealing with, the resettlement has been going on for
Well, you see how
at least 8 to 10 years.
You see how it had just
longer than that.
No, it had just really kicked off when I first moved here about 6 years ago, 7 years ago. It had really started kicking off. There was a huge
there's people complaining about it, but it's been going on.
Well, that's when the attention came, yeah. And those programs were being created during that time, and that's what I'm getting at. There's a lot of programs that are relatively new, and when I say relatively new, I mean within the span of the last 10, 15 years, that people are just now starting to go, oh, wow, my taxes are going to what? You know what I mean?
Yeah, I think it's probably one of those things that sticker value, right? Mm-hmm. You see a car that's $5,000, and you're like, wait, that's what? I'm not buying that car.
Mm-hmm. Right.
And then maybe a year later you see that same car and it's at a used lot and somebody wants an extra $1,000 where you're like, what? It was this much with this many less miles. And the sticker value is always going to have that shock effect. So when people move in, same thing with houses or anything else, and social programs, essentially the dial moved. It moved from, there was a lot of focus on the refugee resettlement program. No matter which side you fell on, there's facts as far as how much money was being put into it, and it angered a lot of people.
Yeah, it did.
Because that was their tax dollars. And then now it's Californians are here, and people, not necessarily Californians, people from all over, and people are abusing the system. And it's a higher amount. There's probably a lot of people abusing it prior, but the amount may
There's more light on it now.
Yeah, because
I think it's inherent that if you have 10 people, let's say 30% of those people are on some sort of assistance or not. 3 out of 10. Okay, and then all of a sudden you have 100 people. There's still 30%, but now that 3 people just turned into 30. There's more people seeing more people. The proportion may have stayed the same, but the perspective is different. Yeah. And I think that's a lot of what might be going on, is that people are just now starting to see that there's 30% because they see 30 people instead of they see 3 people. So I think that might be an aspect as well. I don't know for sure, but I mean that's just an idea to throw out there.
CV?
I'm going to throw a different perspective in on this. So, being someone who's a little bit younger than the both of you, also being a female, I definitely feel like I grew up in a mentality where I want to work for what I, work for what I need to earn. And I've always had that mentality ever since I was 18. I got my first job and everything. And I work in the financial industry, so I work for a big bank. I found that my appearance has held me back in a lot of manners. So, because I am heavily tattooed, because of my alternative appearance, because I wear quite a bit of makeup, I have found that people have undermined me in that aspect. So as somebody who's a little bit younger and has an extremely hard work ethic, like I will work, massive amounts of overtime, and I've earned my place in my job. I mean, I'm a top 10 performer on the floor in what I do.
Mm-hmm.
I tend to be a little bit undermined by older people and what I do. So when I take a little bit of a higher position or a mentorship position, I found people are a little bit more hostile towards me because of my appearance or my age.
Mhm.
So when I'm like, hey, maybe you can do X, Y, and Z, they're like, well, why is a 22-year-old telling me this? Why is a young female telling me this? And I think that's the most frustrating part for me personally is I work for what I get, but I feel like I get a lot of backlash for my appearance and the way I represent myself.
Yeah. Look, there's always going to be that kind of ageism.
Right.
Oh yeah.
And you're going to do the same thing to kids when you're younger. We will too. And the argument could be made that, well, I've seen you without makeup. You are very, you don't need all that makeup. That's a distraction. They could say the same thing about your tattoos, right? So those are all choices, and I'm sure we'll, when we're grumpy and tired, we'll probably say something too. When somebody has their nose stretched, to 00, both nostrils.
Well, I mean, and I can relate to that because when I was in my early 20s, I was in a management position, and I had people that were twice my age that were under me, and I could agree that age that. It's almost like you progress too quickly. You know what I mean? Like from an authority standpoint, people don't respect it because you are young and you're in this position. So I can completely understand what you're saying.
But I worked for it.
Oh yeah, 100%. Yeah, absolutely.
And I think that's the thing. It's not that it was handed to me on a silver platter, and I could definitely understand where that judgment would come in. But regardless of the way that I look, the frustrating part for me is I work equally as hard, if not harder.
Yeah. I actually went from a position where I started off as a laborer, the bottom of the tier.
Yeah, the bottom of the barrel, and you worked your way up the ladder.
And worked my way up to a safety officer who got to go around and say, "You're doing your job unsafe. You need to do it this way."
Right.
And people lost their shit, and it was frustrating. So I can absolutely relate to that ageism thing. I wasn't as tattooed as you are, and I wore a lot less makeup. So.
Oh yeah, and you're like, I just do my eyebrows and my mascara daily. It's fine.
But it is absolutely an aspect, and that is one that should for sure be taken into account. But even still, through those obstacles, you have completely and totally succeeded. Would you agree?
Absolutely.
Do you think that you are special in any regard?
No, absolutely not.
I don't. That's the basis of my statement. Is that anybody can do it. Like regardless if you're covered in tattoos and you have an alternative appearance, if you dedicate your mindset when as soon as you step in those doors at work, that's your job and that's your focus, you will succeed. It's proven.
You'll have obstacles. You're always going to have obstacles, right? Like every time somebody new comes on who's older than you, right? And you're training them.
Sit down, Grandpa.
You're essentially going to have to reprove your worth to them every time.
Every single time. Every person I meet.
Even when you get older, you have the tattoos and the makeup. You're gonna have to. I mean, it's just something that goes along with that. Unless you want to start wearing long sleeves and.
I'm gonna be a nun.
Turtlenecks.
Turtlenecks, yeah. Turtlenecks, you'll be the next Steve Jobs.
That's your own thing. Yeah, no, absolutely. And I think that's something, I realize the consequences behind my actions, and it's unfortunate, but it is there. It's still a basis in our society.
Yeah, I think society's going to come around to that, though. As the dinosaurs die off and more of us that are covered in tattoos.
But, I mean, honestly, can you sit here and ask someone who is 22, do you think that a lot of people hold that same, I guess, value that I do, that you need to work for, you need to work for what you deserve.
I think that's a value that is missing in a lot of my generation and younger. There's a lot more people that are dependent than independent, and I think that's an aspect that is totally missed. No matter what state you're from, I think it's a value that's totally missing.
I guess I've just never walked into a position or anything like, I deserve this because I'm a female. I deserve this because I'm attractive. I've always been like, all right, let's start at the bottom of the barrel and I'll prove myself. I think a lot of people are like, give me because of this.
Entitlement.
Yeah, exactly.
What's funny is as a non-female, non-tatted up, makeup wearing guy, I'll tell you kind of mine. I actually moved to Idaho and took a job that was $8.50 an hour, and it was in a call center. right?
Yeah.
And I had my GED. I don't have my high school diploma. I don't have a college degree.
Nerd.
What do you mean? That's the opposite.
Yeah, I was like, wait, hold on, we need to
No.
go backwards.
I just had my GED. And it was one of those things that with that, because of my work ethic and showing, even though I was younger, showing my work ethic, showing that I knew how to do the job, showing I knew how to coach people through doing the job, I was able to move up to where eventually I had 250 employees, 14 supervisors working for me, working on a government contract with nothing more than showing my work ethic. So I'm sure a lot of people that worked for me were, 10 years my senior. And it was just one of those things that for me it's a matter of confidence in the information you're giving them. Yeah, I'm sure each one of them had their own little challenge even without all the tattoos and makeup.
Right.
There was that, you just have to be confident in the information you're giving.
No, I agree 100%. And like my first job was cleaning fucking truck stop bathrooms. You know what I'm saying? Bottom of the barrel. Bottom of the barrel.
Mine was stocking orders for gas stations, like their candy and cigarettes. I literally worked for a company called Hughes Candy and Tobacco, and it was a warehouse where you get these print-offs, and you'd have to walk through a warehouse with these print-offs. I was 15 years old, and you had to figure out where all this shit was, and then go find it, put it in boxes, to get loaded on the truck. That was my first job.
That's awesome.
It was horrible, actually.
But I think all of us are in the same boat where we start at the bottom of the barrel and we really fucking.
Well, and I think that a lot's to be said about that. The fact that the people that have these kind of ambitions and this kind of work ethic are the kind of people that will set up a camera at 1:00 in the morning and talk about it and try to inspire somebody else to do it, versus the kind of people that don't do this and that are probably, self-loathing and like, well, why isn't this happening for me? Like there's an ambition focus there. And I think that the reason there's 3 of us here that have been at the bottom of the barrel and worked their way up are the people that actually talk about this stuff.
Yeah.
So I think there's something to be said for that.
Yeah. But Californians.
But I was going to say, I don't understand how we went from implants to work ethic.
I think the nice thing about this video cast,
form,
whatever you want to call it, podcast, video cast, whatever. The nice thing about this form is that we're going to start with an initial topic, but we're going to let the conversation free flow where it may go, because there's going to be sub-conversations that happen within it that we want to be like, well, hold on, fuck you, guy, and we want to disagree.
Not your guy, friend.
I mean, it's weird because even all of us being from different backgrounds, we all have the same values, we all hold the same principles with each other. We may differ
Well,
a
it's
little
because
bit.
you're trying to impress his friend.
Totally. That's what it is right now. What can I say, man?
You don't want the friend to hate you.
That's what it is.
So like, oh, you're a conservative? Yeah,
Oh,
me
shit.
too.
Well, me too, bro. Yeah. No, absolutely. I just think if we all hold that perspective, it'd be different if somebody didn't. I think it would be a whole different dynamic if somebody different was at the end of this table right now,
Maybe.
I think so. I think it would be different, of course. I mean, of course it would be different if we had somebody who was a, socialist, polar opposite of me, polar opposite of Bryn. Then obviously it's going to be different. As long as they're respectful in their conversation, then of course we'll continue it. That's how I've always been, is if you can carry on a tune with me.
Yeah, if you
We'll have
can
a
be
conversation,
respectful and you're, if you can agree to disagree, that's what I've always told people. As long as you can handle a debate and you can be respectful and not go to name calling, etc., I can debate with you all day. It doesn't matter. I can still hold that respect and value and we can go back and forth. But the minute people start getting hateful is where I'm like, nope, I'm done. I don't want to hear it. Or
Noted.
So transplants moving to Idaho. For, against, or indifferent?
For.
Indifferent. I could care less if they moved here, and I could care less, either way. I'm indifferent. I don't care.
To explain my stance, can I do that?
Sure.
I'm for it because I think it not only expands Idaho in financial aspects, but I think it brings a better understanding of that melting pot mentality that this country in general is. And I think that Idaho is safe enough in the ideals that people like me, and my opinion is the only one that matters when I develop my opinion. But I think it's concrete enough in its ideals that it's it's going to be this way. The reason I moved here and the reason I stayed here is always going to be there.
I don't agree. But I'll leave it at this. Change is inevitable,
Absolutely.
and you can't change what you can't change. So on that note, if you find something you're passionate about, if there's something about your state and where you're from that's important to you, make an action plan to ensure that that value stays the same. Or you can be one of the reactive people who complain like we see on Facebook.
Have a sticker in your truck that says no vacancy and stuff like that, you know.
Yeah.
Really,
So.
yeah.
On that note, I think anything else? Bryn?
Nope.
All right. On that note, have a wonderful evening. We'll see you next year.